you can see here, if I click the icon, it takes me right into this interface, which is the level editor. If I click the about, it'll open up this little pop-up. You can see the software for JEST is, my software, my company, and then Harlequin is the name of the level editor. So what you can see in this application is a general familiar interface that you would find, in a lot of applications. You've got your sidebar over here on the right for options. You've got the tools for the toolbar on the left. In the top, there is this mock file menu. And so your navigation is going to take place in these three areas. You've got your toolbar here, you've got your file menus and things up here, and then you've got your options on the side. So the center is this canvas for the level, and this is where you're going to do all of your editing. If you look at right above the canvas here, there's a tab which says Untitled, and that's going to be the tab for the level that you're editing right now. So if I went and clicked New, it's going to open up a new tab, and you can see there's now a new tab called Untitled. I can just close the previous one because I haven't made any edits to it, so it's not going to ask me to save my changes. If I go and I hit Open here, you can see it'll open up my file select, and I can just kind of select some of these files here. So the level editor right now works with .nw files, which is one of the Graal version level file types. I don't want to go too deep into it, but so if I go ahead and I look through some of these files here, we'll just go to level 13, which is this boring level that everyone's seen 1,000 times, right? So this is the center of Graal City. And so if you look through my canvas here for the editing, this is the center of Graal City. So by opening level 13.nw, you can see that the level editor already understands .nw file types, and it saves in .nw file types. One thing that it doesn't do is it does not save the NPCs. So it does work with links, like warp zones, and it also works with signs, but it does not work with NPCs because I want to make all of those server side. So like a lot of you already know, the NPC server was my design. And so I plan to implement that and code it myself. If you do save your file using the Harlequin level editor, this level editor here, make sure that you save it as a backup because you don't want to overwrite your .nw file copies because the NPCs will be stripped from the data. So that's just something to keep in mind. But everything else you can see here, if you look on the side, so I've got my tools here. You can save the files, you can close them, open them, all that jazz, blah, 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 start a new one, right? You can switch between tabs. One of the important features is going to be learning the key commands on how to navigate the software and also understanding what the tools are and what the options are. So the options bar right here, you can see on the side here, it's got these collapsible menus. These are options for the various tools and for the software itself. So at the top here, you've got your options little drop down, and it allows you to edit the sound. So you can turn it off by checking mute, or if you wanted to just adjust the volume and leave the sounds on, you can turn the volume down, or if you wanted to turn them way up, you could. So you can see if I open up a file, now it's a louder sound effect because I turned the volume up. So that allows for kind of a more responsive design process. And you'll notice that when editing, there are various sound effects that indicate the actions that you're taking. And it just makes it a little bit more responsive for people who like sound and like to know, have like an audible confirmation of their activity. But if you don't like sound, you can just either hit mute or you can turn the volume way down. It's up to you. But there are sound effects, which gives you a responsive experience audibly. When it comes to the tools on the side here, at the very top, we've got your foreground tile and your background tile. And so this is the swatches that you have attached to the foreground and background. And they also serve as a fill tile and a stroke tile for brushes, like when you're drawing with the pencil tool. And we'll get into that in a second. But one of the things that you should really notice here is that these swatches are a pair. So you've got the foreground, you've got the background tile, and it's very similar to things that you've seen in Photoshop or any other photo editing software, right? Where they have the foreground color and the background color. So that's basically what this is here, is we now have a foreground tile. And I want you to think of this as colors almost, where it's like a palette of swatches. And so you've got your foreground swatch and you've got your background swatch. And you can switch them around here. You can see if I put my mouse over that little flip arrow icon, you can change the foreground tile to the background tile at ease. If you look at my mouse hovering over the swatch icon or button, there is a keyboard command hint next to the word swap, which shows the letter X. And so you can click the letter X on your keyboard and it does the same thing as clicking the swap button. So if you can hear that little noise, it's very subtle. Let me try to turn the volume all the way up, try to capture it. There's a little noise that lets you know that you have swapped the swatches. So if you look at the eyedropper tool, and if I hover over it, again, there is a letter attached to the far right side of the word eyedropper, the tooltip caption. So you know that if you hit the letter I on your keyboard, it will switch you to the eyedropper tool. So if I press I, you can see it just takes me right to the eyedropper tool, and all of me options on the side here have been turned off except for the primary settings for the application itself, because there is no settings for the eyedropper tool at the moment. So there doesn't need to be anything open over there. So everything gets turned off when it's not being used. And so the eyedropper tool is now selected. You can see it's highlighted in red over here. And now I can take my eyedropper and I can click anywhere in the level and it will set that tile as my foreground tile up here. So watch the flower in the corner there. When I click this blue tile, and you can hear a little noise there, right? You can hear that little noise, that little raindrop noise indicates that you have eyedropped that tile into your foreground swatch. So that blue tile that I just eyedropped from the roof of this house has now become my foreground. You know, one thing that I want you again to keep in mind here is, as I mentioned earlier, the swatch swap button indicates if you click the letter X on your keyboard, it swaps your swatches. So now you can see that that blue tile is the background tile. And so the green that was the background tile is now my foreground tile. So I can go ahead and I can take the eyedropper tool and I can click somewhere else on the level. Let's take this walkway here. And now I have that little brick from that walkway as the foreground tile. And my background tile is the blue tile of the roof. If I want to switch it back, I can hit the letter X again on my keyboard. And you can see that it switches my swatches again. So now that brick from the walkway is my background tile. But another thing that you can do is when you have the eyedropper tool selected, you can hold down the Shift key on your keyboard. And if you hold down the Shift key, you can click anywhere on the level. So let's just click this flower. And that will set your background tile. So if you hold Shift down and click, that also sets the background tile. Another thing that you can do is you can go down here to your palette tool. See this right here where it says palette? You can either click this or you can press the letter P on your keyboard and that will switch to the palette tool. But you'll notice over here on the right side that there is a new options panel opened up in this collapsible menu right below the main options for the software. And so the palette options opens up this palette of tiles. So your tile set is the palette tool. And you can open up your palette of tiles. And in there, you can select objects. So let's say I wanted to pull this tree trunk into my level. I just, select it. And then I drop it into the level where I want it to go. You can also click. So for example, let's say I want this flower here. If I click the flower, just the tile itself gets selected and I can drop the flower into the level. Another thing that you can do with the palette tool is you can double click on a tile and that will set your foreground swatch. So if I wanted to go through here, I can double click any of these tiles. So for example, let's say I want to have this dirt here. So I have this dirt and I double clicked it and now my foreground tile is that dirt. And now what I can go ahead and do after just double clicking it in the palette tile set is I can switch to this pencil tool here. Now the pencil tool, if you look at the far right of the word pencil on the tooltip, is accessible through the keyboard command D. By pressing D on your keyboard, you can switch to the pencil tool. So I'll just press D and now my pencil tool has opened up. In the pencil tool, I can basically click anywhere and you can see I am now adding little pieces of dirt throughout the grass on this level canvas just to kind of make it look a little more natural and organic. You don't want to have a level where everything just looks too perfect or it ends up looking dull, boring, and unrealistic. Your brush size can be increased. And what you can do with that over here in the pencil options is you can actually increase the brush size of your drawing. So if I wanted to have a 4x4 brush size, you can see that it's now laying dirt down in various places. Now, the reason this doesn't look like a perfect 4x4 rectangle, as you might expect, is because my roundness setting has been turned up for the pencil brush tool. So with the roundness all the way up, you can see that it kind of tries to curve the edges of your brush. If you select an odd number, you should be able to get a perfect circle, as you can see there, because then it has a perfect center. And as we all know, odd numbers allow you to have even numbers on either side. So by setting your brush size to an odd number, you can have perfect circles with your roundness all the way up. And you can increase your brush size as much as you want. And you can see it starts to draw using the foreground tile that is attached to your tool. I'm just going to go ahead and undo a bunch of these, turn this volume down, it's a little bit loud, undo a bunch of these, and just kind of clean up the level again, back to where it was, get rid of all these brushes. And I'm going to take this pencil tool, instead of having to switch to your eyedropper tool while you're drawing, is you can actually hold down the Option key or the Alt key on Windows. So if you hold down the Option key in the level while you're drawing, you can see it temporarily highlights the eyedropper tool. If I let go of the Option key, it goes right back to my pencil tool. So I'm holding down the Option key and it switches me to the eyedropper tool. I can quickly grab any of these tiles on the level here, and I can set that as my foreground tile. As you can see this changing up here in the corner. Everywhere I click now becomes my foreground tile. If I let go of Option, I am now back to the pencil tool and I can draw again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn down my brush size to, maybe let's set it to 2, and I'm going to hold down Option and I'm going to click one of these flowers. And if I let go of Option, I can now just paint some flowers. One of the other features of the pencil tool is you can add a stroke to the pencil tool. And so what that's going to do is it's going to convert the foreground swatch here into a fill. And it's going to convert the background swatch into a stroke. And so the stroke is going to be around the fill, and the fill is going to be the center of your pencil brush as you draw. So if I take the pencil and I kind of increase the size here and I give it a stroke, then you can see that as I draw, it's going to draw these flowers with a stroke of 1 grass tile surrounded around it, because that is my background tile. That is the stroke. So if I take that and get a little creative with it, one of the things that you can do is you can take that brush tool and you can open up your palette tool here. And the palette tool allows you to open up the tile set. I'm going to take the walkway. I'm going to double click that to set that as my foreground tile, as you can see up here. And then I'm going to hit X just to kind of put that in the background for a minute. I'm going to double click the side of that. And now I have this pale green brick with the inside brick. If I hit X again, it's going to flip those. So now what I have as the stroke is I have the outside of a walkway and I have the inside of a walkway. If I switch back to my drawing tool, I can set my brush size to maybe about 2, and I can keep the stroke to 1. If I start drawing, then you can see that I can have curved walkways without having to put much effort into it. So if I wanted to have walkways going in many different directions, I don't have to do a ton of labor to create these types of walkways, which are very much copy and pasted because it's very difficult to create walkways. They are a lot of work. But with the pencil tool, that allows you to have a brush size, and you can also, again, change the roundness if you wanted to. So if I wanted this to be a little harsher, I can turn this up. And I should be able to get different shapes and sizes here. I can increase my stroke if I wanted to have a thicker outline. So if I wanted to have a more prominent walkway, I can do that. And then I could just draw little brush strokes. So I'm going to go ahead and set this back to the typical weight of 2. And I'm going to keep the stroke at 1. And I'm just going to continue drawing some walkways here. And so now I have like this fork of walkways leading across the level. I can now go ahead and I could just switch to my brush size of 1. I'm going to get rid of the stroke and I'm just going to draw. So I'm going to take the inside here and I'm going to clean up some of these odd overlaps and try to just make it look like a walkway should look. And you can see this is starting to look a lot better. And if I hold down Option, I can, again, select the background tile here, and I can just clean up some of these lost little tiles that I don't want, or loose tiles. I'm going to go ahead and select this brick. I'm going to fix that. I'm going to fix that. And I'm going to switch back and forth with the Option key on Mac or the Alt key on Windows. And I'm going to keep switching back and forth and just start cleaning up this walkway and making it look a lot more professional. So now I have this kind of like walkway forming here. One of the other things is part of those walkways typically have this outside brick, and it's kind of difficult to find it on this tile set. So I'm just go ahead and I'm going to use the eyedropper tool, grab that little brick there, and that becomes my foreground swatch. And I'm going to go back to my pen tool, and I'm just going to start drawing those in. So now you can see this walkway starting to really come together. Now, because all of these little grass blades are not the proper grass, what I can do is I can go to my flood fill tool here. And you can see contiguous is turned on, and there's also a scatter feature. So I can turn contiguous off and on, and I can also turn scatter up and down. So what contiguous allows me to do is to flood fill areas that are only touching each other of the same tile. And if I turn contiguous off, it'll replace all of the tiles in the level of a specific type. So for example, with contiguous turned off, if I select this roof here, I can go ahead and flood fill the blue roof with contiguous turned off, and they all get replaced with the red because contiguous is turned off. So if I wanted all of these to be back to, the way that they were, I can just hit undo, undo. And another useful thing is you can turn your scatter up on the flood fill here. So if I turn scatter up, it starts to get randomized. So you'll see if I start to fill in this grass here, it just creates a randomized effect of flood fill. If I turn it all the way up, it becomes very, very scarce. And you can see it starts to look like something a little more organic and odd. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to select this grass here with my flood fill turned tool on, and I'm going to turn contiguous off. I'm going to lower my scatter, and I'm just going to get rid of all that grass. So now this is starting to look a lot more like a normal grawl level, right? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this scatter, I'm going to turn it all the way up to 99, and I'm going to use my eyedropper tool right here by holding Option key, and I'm going to select a flower, and I'm going to just use my flood fill tool, and if I hit that grass with my flood fill, you can see it starts to place a lot of random flowers all over the place, so I don't have to manually lay them. Now these two touching here, I don't like that, so I'm going to switch to my draw tool. I'm going to hold Option to eyedrop the grass. I'm just going to paint that out. So that's now looking a lot more natural and a lot more organic. I'm going to hit my eyedropper again to grab the flower, and I'm going to just paint one there, maybe remove some of that empty space and balance it out a bit. And the idea is we just want it to start looking a lot more realistic and a lot more natural. So the flood fill with the scatter allows you to have very much kind of like a randomized effect, and it makes level editing a lot faster, as does the brush tool with a stroke. I'm going to go ahead and take the eyedropper tool with the flood fill, and I'm going to select this grassy blades, as you can see my swatch there. I'm going to hit flood fill, and I'm going to, again, with my scatter turned up to 99, and contiguous turned off, I'm going to flood fill into the grass. And what that does is it starts to lay a lot of little grass blades all over the place so that the grass doesn't look so boring and dull and mundane and undecorated. I'm going to go ahead and take the pencil tool, and I'm going to hold Option key, and I'm going to grab that second half of the grass blades, and I'm going to switch back to my level here. And I'm just going to start painting or drawing these in, whatever word you prefer here, next to the other grass blades, so that we now have the pair of grass blades, right? A little room for spontaneity and mystery does not hurt the creative experience. Round that out, and you can see that now the level is looking a lot more like an organic and natural field. So I can go back to the palette here by hitting P, and I'm just going to look for that little dirt thing. I'm going to go back to my flood fill here, and I'm going to, with my scatter turned up and contiguous off, I'm just going to flood fill some of these little dirt patches into the level. So now throughout the level, there's a number of little dirt patches, which makes it look a little more organic. I think that's a little bit overkill. So either you can undo it and flood fill it again, for example, just to try to get a different random scene to see if that looks better. And I think that does look a little bit better. And because I think it looks a little bit better, I'm going to switch back to the pen tool. I'm going to eyedrop the grass, and I'm just going to start painting a lot of these little dirt pieces out. Actually, I think that looks a little mysterious, having them clumped like that right there. They might appear a little bit closer to the walkways where people are trampling around a lot. And so now we have like these dirt little tiles in various places, kind of helping the level look a lot more like a level. I can go to my marquee tool, and the marquee tool is your average select tool. Your background tile, if you lift a selection tool, the background tile gets replaced and flood fill those off. The marquee tool allows you to do a number of things. In your marquee options, you can select a mosaic, which is a predefined object. So if I wanted to insert a bush, I can go to my predefined mosaics, and I can just hit insert, and it's going to insert this bush mosaic into the level. So I can insert a few more of these. Let's just kind of maybe leave that there in the field. And then perhaps somebody has been trying to keep them a little more active by the walkway. And I'm going to look for maybe a sign here, and I'm going to insert a sign, and let's just put a sign. Let's put a sign right there by the bushes. Let's also go through our mosaic objects here. Let's find a green stone. It's starting to look too rectangular. Let's put this. And let's also put a tree. Let's get a tree up in here. I'm going to find a house. There's a house here at the end of this walkway. And so you have like this house that's kind of encompassed through these walkways. And maybe they have little bricks and things laying around. I'll switch to my marquee tool. I'll select those. I'm going to copy that by hitting Command C. I'm going to paste it. And now I have kind of like this fence action going on here. Let's maybe also grab this peg, this stake in the ground, and stick it in the backyard. Maybe they tie their dog up to that. There's also a little bit of a fence here. Maybe this is a little too far back. And so now you have kind of like this level emerging. If I go to this marquee tool, one thing I can do is I can switch between, so not only can I select, mosaics and just kind of start inserting them in various places to help decorate areas, but I can also select with the marquee tool the front of the sign here. And if I switch over into, see where the top of here, where it lets me to select mosaics or warp zones. If I select sign and hit create, it'll ask me some information about that sign. So signs in this level editor have names. So you can name your sign. The name is not native to the .nw file format, but with the Harlequin level editor, it is. So you can add names to signs. They don't get rendered to the player, so the player can't read them, but they are a back-end way to read signs in the drop-down list so that you know which sign is which. Say, backdoor walkway signage. And that's just so I know that this is this, sign behind the house on the walkway. And then I can add some information here, like this walkway is a cascading, and just type in a message. This walkway is a cascading park made to honor the spirits of long forgotten past. If I hit confirm, it now creates a sign. And because the sign is selected, it becomes animated. So you can see which sign is selected here. So because this sign is the sign that's selected, it's now dancing with ants. As you can see around it, the red highlight of the sign is active because I have it selected in the dropdown. So you can also check out the X and Y coordinates in these read-only fields above the sign name and also the dialogue in order to find out where it's located. So if you're looking for a sign, you're like, ooh, which one is this? Where is it? Well, we have a name for it now, and we also have the X and the Y coordinate. So if I look for 32.6 down here in the status bar, if you're looking down here, you can look by moving your cursor, you can find 32.6. There is my sign. So you can either see the animated red highlights, or you can look for the coordinates. So if I go back to level 13 here, and I start looking for the various signs, I can see, so I started renaming some of these signs, right? So you have the southern entrance, refers to the southern entrance sign. Now, in Grawl's level editor, the signs aren't named, so you don't know which is which. But in this level editor, you can name the signs, and you can save that to the file. And it should still be compatible with the Grawl level engine, which opens .nw files. It should still be compatible. By selecting various signs in the level, and if they don't have a name yet, it'll tell you there's no name. So here's Zol's Pub, right? Let's go ahead and name this Zol's Pub sign. And you can see it turns red because I'm editing it. And then the apply button is now enabled, and it's asking me if I want to save my changes. Make sure that once you edit a sign or a warp zone, it turns red, indicating that it's been changed. Make sure before you exit the marquee tool and start doing other things and checking out other dropdowns, make sure that you save your changes so that you don't lose them, right? So go ahead and hit apply, and you can see here, and you can hear that noise, that it has been changed. It's no longer red, it's saved, and it's been updated, and lets me know that Zol's Pub sign is the third sign in the dropdown list. So now if I wanted to change that, I can look at my drop-down list, I can find, oh, there's Zol's Pub sign. Here is Zol's Pub. I can add some more dialogue and say Zol's Pub since 1998. And I can add that to the sign there, and I can apply it. And if I wanted to, I could save my changes. And so hitting save, it lets you know it's been saved, and now this is now in the file. You can also do that with warp zones. Warp zones allow you to look by which level they link to. In the future, I might give you the ability to name warp zones, just like you can name signs now. So warp zones appear when you select them, and all the signs are now no longer being rendered, but you can see the warp zone interactive player fields. And so you can access them through the marquee tool. If you wanted to, you can take a screenshot of the level with the warp zones so you can show your friends, and you can hit the screenshot button over here. Or if you look at the far right of the tooltip that says snapshot, you can hit the letter S. By hitting S, it opens up this save file dialog, and I can download a screenshot of the level. And I'll just do level 13 warp zone editing, and just now I have a screenshot with the warp zones. If I wanted to, I could do the same thing with the signs if I wanted to. So I could switch to the signs, and now all the red is showing. I could take a screenshot of the level with just the sign showing to show other people on the team who are developing levels with me. yeah, now in my level that I was working on, if I select the signs, I can update this, or if I wanted to add a warp zone, I can switch to the warp zones. I can select this, and then I can create a warp zone to house interior 1.nw and just add, let's any random number for now. And now I have a warp zone in front of the house created here. I can save this, and now I have this file called level construction 1.nw that I'm working on. So now I have this saved to my computer. So as you can see, there's a lot you can do with this level editor. This is the first beta version of it. It will be available as an application for your desktop and also through the web browser. So right now there is a preliminary alpha version that you can access and start making levels through the web browser. It's important to know that when you're working through the web browser, you want to be careful not to accidentally refresh your page or to have a crash or to switch your page and lose your progress. You can't save files in place through the web browser due to web browser security, but what you can do is you can download your edits. So every time you make a change, you can download it. But the version of the web level editor Harlequin that is not through the browser, the one that I'm working on now, this is ported through Electron. So Electron allows you to have applications, whether it's a Mac.app or a .exe executable for Windows operating system. So you can have the level editor on Mac and for Windows, and you can save it. So you can see here, like I'm not having to download my file changes. I can save it directly to my computer by using the Electron app. So once that's more stable, I'll release it. But if you want to have access to test this level editor out, if you like a lot of the features, you think it's going to help you with your design process, please be sure to check out the link in the description below. You can join the JEST Discord community, and I will provide you a link to be able to play with the level editor in the web browser.